I trust you have your Bibles open now to Matthew chapter 25. And beginning in verse 14, we read about the parable of the talents. It says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods." This was a common experience in the Middle East in biblical times. A man who owned an estate, upon leaving for a business trip or for a vacation, would entrust his estate, he would entrust his goods and the functioning thereof to his servants. And knowing his servants, that is, knowing that some were more gifted than others, he would entrust them with various responsibilities accordingly. And that's what this man did. For we read in verse 15, "And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his ability. And straightway," or immediately, "he took his journey." Now, since this is connected with the kingdom of heaven, that is, the kingdom of heaven is like this, like a man traveling into a far country. The man traveling into a far country here would be the Lord, the Master. And upon his journey into a far country, I take it the ascension, he ascended to the right hand of the Father. He went into a far country. And when he left, he entrusted something to his followers, to his servants. And here they are referred to as talents. Now, actually, a talent is money. A talent is 75 pounds of gold, or it could be 75 pounds of silver. For in those days they had both silver and gold talents. Now you can sense that the 5-talent servant must have been a very trusted servant. For if you take 5 times 75, you get the number of pounds. You multiply that by 16, you get the number of ounces. You multiply that by approximately $400, and you get the current amount, the current value of 5 talents. And it is astronomical. This was a very trusted servant. To another he gave 2 talents. And then to a third he just gave 1. And it was expected that upon his return, these servants would have taken good care of this which had been left to them. And such was the case with the 5-talent servant and the 2-talent servant. For it says in verse 16, "Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made other 5 talents." So he increased his amount by 100%. He now has, instead of 5 talents, 10 talents. "And likewise, he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. In other words, he doubled his. He started with 2, and now he has 4. And therefore, even though he started with a small amount, percentage-wise, he was just as successful as the 5-talent servant. For now, instead of 2, he has 4. He has increased the original investment by 100%. But we read that the servant who had received 1 talent, he went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. And upon the Lord's return, there was only the 1 talent to show for. One can't help but think that the 1 talent servant had some ulterior motives. He could have put it into the bank, and it would have earned interest. The Lord mentioned this to him upon his return. One can't help but wonder whether or not the 1 talent servant really believed that his master would return. Perhaps he was hoping that his master would not return, and then the 1 talent would be his. But we are told that after a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents, he came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. How proud he must have been. What inner satisfaction he must have had, being able to give to his Lord not only the original 5, but 5 more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. A very interesting principle here. Here is a servant who was faithful while his master was away. Upon his master's return, he now has the continued privilege of serving him. He says, I will make thee ruler over many things. One day the Lord will return. And He has not entrusted us with money. According to Luke's account, when the Lord left, He said to His disciples, Occupy till I come. Or perhaps more familiar to our ears would be the expression, carry on. There are many things to do in this world for the Master, for the Lord. He has given us natural talents. He has given us spiritual gifts. That is, every believer has spiritual gifts. And we are to use them for the glory of God. We are to carry on while He is away. One day He will return, and we will be held accountable. And we will appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Are you ready? How are you doing with that with which the Lord has entrusted you? Will you have the continued privilege of serving Him upon His return because you have been faithful now? Notice verse 22. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. And again, one can't help but sense a satisfaction in the heart of this man. For he not only gave his master the 2 talents that he had left with him, but he was able to give him 2 talents more. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Did you notice that? The Lord's response to the 2-talent servant was identical to his response to the 5-talent servant. The principle is clear. All of us are gifted differently. All of us have a certain measure of ability. And that is from God. We're different. We're not all the same. But if we are faithful with the abilities and the gifts that God has entrusted to us, the reward will be equal. The reward is on the basis of faithfulness. The 5-talent servant who had great ability was faithful. The 2-talent servant who had less ability was faithful. And the Lord's response was identical. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. The 2-talent servant now had the continued privilege of serving the Lord upon his return. How about you? What if the Lord were to return today? Have you been faithful over a few things? And will you now have the continued privilege of serving Him? Will He make you ruler over many things? Or have you been laid aside by some little problem? Someone 20 years ago said something that hurt you, and you haven't served the Lord since. What a tragedy. What a victory for Satan. It's not too late. Serve Him while you have the opportunity. And upon His return, He will reward you. But we move on now to the 1-talent servant. Then he that had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee, that thou art an hard man. In other words, you're stern, you're strict. Reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed or spread. And I was afraid, and went and hid my talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast what is thine. One can't help but sense that the 1-talent servant is not proud. He was not looking for this day of reckoning. It was not a joyous occasion. And he accused the Lord of being stern and of reaping even where he had not sown. It was an excuse, and the Lord picked up on it. And he said unto him, that is, the Lord said unto the 1-talent servant, Thou wicked and slothful or lazy servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not spread. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received my own with interest. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him who hath 10 talents. This is punishment. This is rebuke. He does not say to the 1-talent servant upon his return, you now, because you have been unfaithful, have the continued privilege of serving me. I will make you ruler over much. No. He took away the opportunity. And he gave it to the one who was faithful. And then he said, For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And here it seems that he is clearly talking about faith and faithfulness. For everyone that hath faith, for everyone that has faithfulness, for everyone that has faith that works, he shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not faith, and therefore is not faithful, because he does not have a faith that works, it shall be taken from him. He shall be punished. He shall lose the privilege of serving the Lord. Now here, it's very possible that the one-talent servant was not saved to begin with. He did not have faith to begin with. For he did not believe that his master would return. Seemingly he had ulterior motives. And therefore, as a result, he is punished upon the Lord's return. For in verse 30 it says, "Cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." The message is clear. We may not understand all the details of the parable, but the thrust of the parable is clear, and that is, be prepared. You don't know when your master is going to return, and therefore serve him faithfully now. And upon his return, whether it's morning or noon or night, you will be faithfully serving him, and regardless of when he comes, you will be prepared. That's the message of the parable. It's very much like the parable of the 10 virgins, and also the parable of the unprofitable servant, found in Matthew chapter 24, verses 42 to 51. All three of these parables teach the same message. That is, be prepared and be faithfully serving the master while he is away. And then upon his return there will be reward rather than punishment.